Welcome back to Absolute Truth. This is episode 9, the current state of hip-hop. The past couple years, there have been a lot of people saying that hip-hop is dead or it just doesn't feel the same as compared to the 90s. But if you really take a look at hip-hop in general, first of all, hip-hop is only about 30 to 40 years old. Created in around the 70s but became popular in the 80s. So it's still a younger genre compared to some of the other ones, rock, jazz. So to me, I don't really think it's dead, or of course it's not going to be how it used to be, because there always has to be some type of progression. But to me, I feel that it's still in its infancy, and it's pretty much like when you're growing up and you reach those awkward stages in life and you just kind of you haven't found yourself yet. And you're still learning more about yourself. That's how I see hip-hop at this point. Because if you look at a couple current albums like Watch the Throne, which just came out, and the instrumentation was, well, it's different from what we've heard before in hip-hop. But when you compare it to other genres of music, you notice how far behind hip-hop is in using a variety of sounds. Hip-hop is so young in the way that it started a lot with sampling and sounds that were already available, because not too many people in hip-hop knew how to play instruments. So we're just now getting out of the sampling phase and getting more into instrumentation, I feel. And it's good. There's going to be some hit or miss moments, but I think it's a good thing, and it's still growing and changing. Now, I don't think that sampling is necessarily a bad thing, but I feel that it just kind of puts a lot of limitations on what you can do at certain times, especially if you're sampling like oldies or jazz. You still kind of get the same feel to it. But there are producers now that just sample current music. Current example is Toki Monster. She's an Asian female producer that lives out in Tokyo. And some of her sounds are very eclectic. She has some jazz sounds. She has some rock and roll sounds. She has some techno sounding electronic stuff. And that's another point. I think when you go internationally, you hear they're more accepting of certain sounds than we are here when it comes to hip hop. And I'm not really sure why. Maybe it's because people are afraid to go too far. Well, I shouldn't say people. Corporations are afraid to go too far from the formula that's been working for them so far. And that pretty much goes back to my first point, where people are saying it doesn't feel the same and it's not as good. There are always going to be artists out there that kind of fit your criteria of what you're looking for. If you're more into the boom bap from the 90s, or if you're into some of the new school stuff like Drake, there's always going to be somebody out there that might not be on your radio, that might not be mainstream. But now more so than ever, you kind of have to go out there and find what you like, instead of just turning on the radio and it being there. If you don't really like what's on the radio, I feel that it's pretty much our fault, because it's almost like the corporations are just going to put out what sells and what's supported. And as you get older, you kind of get stuck in your ways, and you like what you like, and it's going to fall out of favor sooner or later. And the newer generation is going to come up, and they're going to be raised on a certain type of music, and that's what's going to be supported. So the only way you can really find what you're looking for is, like I said before, is going out and getting it on the internet. And there are tons and tons of different artists on the internet with a whole bunch of different sounds, just in the United States, not even accounting what's going on in England or South Africa or just all around the world. And I just wanted to make another thing clear is, hip-hop will never die. It's an idea. You can't kill an idea. It just is going to evolve, and it's just going to become something different. If you don't like what it is, then that's on you. That's your personal opinion. But it's something that's going to be always evolving and always changing. Just like any other genre of music. They kind of start off as one thing, but they'll branch off into a whole bunch of other different subcategories. So there's always going to be something out there for somebody. You may not like it, but that's just how it is. When it comes to the newer styles of hip-hop, and people are saying that they don't like it or it doesn't feel the same way, I think a lot of the time people aren't really listening to the lyrics, because just because it sounds different doesn't mean there isn't some kind of message or the lyricism isn't there. Because a lot of the times that people just hear the instrumentation and that's the only thing they really pay attention to. I'm not saying that the instrumentation isn't important, which it is, but there has to be some kind of balance. And most of the time now, people are just looking for the instrumentation. I think the reason a lot of people complain about the way hip hop is because all of the materialism that goes along with it, and it's somewhat misogynistic. Well, let me start with the materialism first. To me, it's almost like if I was an artist and I was putting out this music and it was about me struggling and not doing well, and then I see another artist who is talking about, like I see Jay-Z and he's talking about how much money he's made and he's selling millions of records and people are buying it. Why wouldn't I make that kind of music if I really needed the money? Because it all goes with what you support. So if you're going to complain about these artists not making quality music, you have a couple options. You can not listen to them, and then you can find another artist who fits what you're looking for. Or you can just support them and then just put up with it and not complain about it. To me, hip-hop is pretty much at a stage where it's going to be what we want it to be. So if we want it to be materialistic, or that's with any genre of music, it's just going to be what you want it to be. If you support a certain type of music, that's what's going to be popular, that's what's going to be on the radio. Well, as far as the misogynistic stuff, you hear all these people complaining that rap is degrading music, and we've heard that pretty much since the beginning of time, as far as hip-hop goes. For a long time, we've been hearing that. If these women weren't willing to be paid to be in a music video like Tip Drill, then there wouldn't have been a music video, and nobody would have been complaining about it being on Uncut. So I think people just need to take more responsibility, because these rappers can't really make songs about women or videos about women if there aren't women supporting it. But women will be the first ones to dance to it when it comes on in the club, even though it's quote unquote degrading. So again, if you don't like it, don't support it, don't dance to it, don't download it, don't buy it, don't do any of that. Because it's just a whole bunch of people complaining about nothing. Now that's our show for this week. Please comment on our site at tolpodcast.com. You can also call us on the hotline at 561-463-2691. Or you can email us at tolpodcast@yahoo.com. Before I go, there's a picture underneath this show. It should be underneath the show comments. I was on Rap Radar the other day and actually saw a picture of Yellow Wolf on the set of his song with Kid Rock. And the first thing it reminded me of was the guy from The Fifth Element, the bad guy. So I included that picture. I don't know, just because I thought it was funny. But I'll be back in 2 weeks. Thank you for listening.